right, welcome back to another Bright News podcast and discussion. So I'm here with Shane Kennedy. So how you doing, Shane?
Doing great, Shannon. What about yourself?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm good. Yeah. So
A lot's
I
happening.
a lot is happening. There's a lot going. There's a lot going on. A lot to try and pay attention to, which is it's we're moving fast, right? And of
Yeah.
course the elections are coming up soon. So you know, eyes are wide open regarding that and all the statements and comments and drama and everything that's coming out. But there's one particular article I wanted to start with today, which I thought was kind of interesting. And this is from Breitbart. It says the Hangover star Zach Galifianakis warns celebrity endorsements may backfire on Kamala Harris with small town voters. Hollywood celebrities are beating down the door to help push Kamala Harris over the finish line in November. But one star is warning that celebrity endorsements may end up backfiring on her, especially when it comes to small town voters who may not appreciate being lectured to by multimillionaire coastal elites. So, with that, I mean, do you think that what he's saying is basically reflective of maybe majority opinion, here in the United States, right? Like people feel like um, if you don't know how to communicate with the common person, you know what I'm saying, with a regular American, and you're getting all these endorsements from
hmm
wealthy people, what does that really say about your campaign and your political aspirations, right? Um, so yeah, I'll just start with that. What do you think about that?
Well, you know, celebrities don't care about issues that average working people care about.
Right, right.
I think there's a grocery store in Southern California, and I think it's a local chain to them, or it may be a larger or it may span beyond Southern California, but it's called like I think it's called Erewhon,
Hmm.
Erwon, and
Okay.
it's one of the most expensive grocery stores in the country,
Hmm.
probably in the world. They're famous for like a little plastic package of like chicken salad that costs like $50. They're
Okay.
famous for like $60 guac, like a little like a little tiny disposable bowl of guacamole, like $60. You know, they probably got like a whole aisle devoted to caviar and stuff. And that's the preferred grocery store of a lot of these people in Hollywood.
Hmm.
Like they like Lindsay Lohan and all the stars that live over
Yeah.
there. They 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 all go they go there to get like to get smoothies and to get sandwiches, to get all these kinds of things. and
Hmm.
and like a smoothie and a sandwich there will cost like $80 or $100 or $150. So what my whole point in saying this, I'm sure the food there is really good. Like
Hmm.
I'm not gonna poo poo it, yeah, but
Hmm.
the thing is, I have a really hard time believing that you've got a pulse on the concerns of average everyday Americans when
Hmm.
you're spending on like one item at your grocery store
Yeah.
that you shop at. When you spend the same amount of money on one item that an average American would spend at the grocery store in like a week,
Right.
or maybe at least for a few days. Now, if you're talking
Well,
about a
well, give
family,
it, give
you
it,
might be
give
talking
it.
about like one day's worth of food.
Given given the economic climate right now, I'm sure. Yeah, you're probably having to go to the store quite a bit to just to get a few items that are probably going to
Yeah,
cost you $100, right? But yes, I see where you're coming from.
yeah,
You
yeah, yeah,
know,
yeah.
yeah.
I guess the thing is that you know, like the price of food at the grocery store, that's the most obvious thing that slams working people in the face
Hmm.
whenever they have to eat, because that's the thing, everybody has to eat.
Hmm.
You know, you know, you
Hmm.
know, big people, small people, people that have families, people that don't, they all got to eat, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, the numbers don't lie. Yeah, at the grocery store when they're spending. In fact, I think Kamala Harris was speaking at a campaign event that she had, and she said that in the past 3 years, the price of ground beef is up 50%.
Mm-hmm.
In the past 3 years, the price of like eggs has like doubled or something. And she went through a list of about 3 or 4 items, and I'm thinking to myself, you're not really helping your case,
Right.
because you've been in the White House this entire time.
Right.
And
Right.
you have not been out, but you have not been out, railing against President Biden, spending money into circulation like it's going out of style,
Right.
which is actually making it go out of style. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
the thing is, the people in Hollywood, they're trying to redirect our attention the way that magicians do. They're trying
Mm-hmm.
to redirect our attention away from these everyday issues that are staring us right in the face, like these
Mm-hmm.
affordability issues. They want us to hate Putin and support the war in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
They want us
Mm-hmm.
to somehow um uh they want for us to become climate radicals,
Mm-hmm.
and buy into this notion that the only acceptable vehicles to drive around in are electric vehicles, but not
Mm-hmm.
Teslas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
and they had this, there's this whole weird thing, but basically what it is these are all rich people problems. These are all rich people issues, and they're
Yeah.
trying to get working class and poor people to buy into these rich people issues. The problem is that poor people and working people, they can't afford to buy into the rich people issues this
Right.
election season.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and also think about this, man. Like all the people that have, all the people that have been that were at the DNC and all of this stuff, you know, there were a lot of celebrities, a lot of entertainers and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that, right? Um, but again, and then you think about the RNC, the Republican National Convention, right? You saw a lot of people, to me, who seemed to be regular Americans who were getting up on the stage and they were talking about their their issues with this
Yeah.
administration, right? And um, I think one thing that is sort of people can tell, I mean, I could be wrong, but I think people can tell when there's a certain level of um, being disingenuous, right? And I think that people see Democrats, the Democratic Party, as being disingenuous. That they
Yeah.
don't have a real, um, they don't really have any real policies in store that are going to be useful to regular, everyday Americans, right? Um, you know, there's no talk. There's no. Well, first of all, she hasn't really, Kamala Harris hasn't really come out to do any talks, to speak at all, right?
In fact,
Now,
tonight she's supposed to do her first interview, right?
right. And what's that on CNN?
It's going to be on CNN. Dana Bash is going to be
Well,
the one that's interviewing her, and
yeah,
the entire time Kamala is going to have her VP Tim Walz.
hmm
He's going to be holding her hand the entire time.
really,
Yeah,
okay, yeah.
you
Well,
know, just to make sure that she stays on script. And I'm not sure if I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but Dana Bash at CNN,
hmm
her husband is some high level NSA director.
hmm
Um and so she's super close with the Bidens. She's
hmm
personally super close with the upper echelons of the Democratic Party. She's really close to the upper echelons of the intelligence community and all that.
yeah,
So this is going to be a super softball interview.
right. She's in good with the limousine liberals, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. See, I didn't. Now, I had heard that there was going to be a talk that she was giving uh recently. So yeah, I didn't even know that was today. I mean, that's how that's how you know I'm not really following her campaign. But I'm just I'm probably one of many.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Um, and I just want to say, in particular, there has been a lot of conversation amongst Black Americans as far as uh, putting a lot of support behind her, right? So, a lot of Black celebrities and well-known people have come out to support her and endorse her. And in particular, I think they do that on purpose, especially with Black men, because they
Mhm.
because there's this whole trajectory now, you know, showing that there's a lot of Black men that are starting to gravitate towards Donald Trump.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Um, and to be honest, I have to say women too, right?
Yeah.
Especially after that whole concert that she did, with the various artists, and there was some talk about, you know, um, what was this? Was it Holes for Harris? Something like
Yeah.
that. I
The
don't know if
yeah.
you can see it on YouTube, but
The,
anyways,
yeah, Megan the Stallion, I think was the lead
yeah,
performer.
yeah, yeah, a beautiful
Yeah.
woman.
And
But
she's famous for her song WAP, right?
oh,
That's her. Yeah.
is that what she's famous?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. I mean, you know, I do my best to avoid listening to stuff like that, but you know, um, I think I think I think when you have when you have first of all when you have somebody sing songs like that, I mean I just think, well, okay, you could have sung any other song, you know what I mean, but you know you could have had it any other hashtag,
Yeah.
but that was the tag that you were labeled as Holes for Harris. You got this entertainer who's sort of known for songs like that, and whatever. Okay, I'm sure that as adults, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, I'm sure there are people in the Republican Party that listen to those songs too. Okay,
Oh, yeah. Oh, no
so
doubt.
we don't have to label the Democratic Party as the party of just
That's
you
just
know
modern day American culture, man.
yeah, that's just
That's
a that's just a modern day
yeah.
American problem, right? But that being said, for all of Kamala Harris's um, insistence on being a black woman, right, and an Indian woman,
Hmm.
for all her insistence on, um, you know, well, hell, that's pretty much all I can think about. I can't think of anything that she's ever really done besides besides um, besides uh, be
Well,
very I'm sorry, be very condescending. Okay, she's very condescending to people that she talks to.
yeah.
In particular, I noticed that um, she kind of has that auntie, very like auntie like attitude. Like
Hmm.
she's always like, I'm speaking, I'm speaking.
Yeah.
And I
But
think to
she has nothing to say. I mean, she's not
myself,
she's not saying anything profound. Like,
right.
you know,
She's not
in
saying nothing at all. She's just
yeah.
repeating the same. She repeats the same thing in different ways over and over again.
Yeah,
Have you
that we
noticed
need to
that?
be unburdened, that we need to be unburdened from what was, so that we can so we can experience what has not been, or something like that. She speaks in a lot of that very generic corporate type of language,
Yeah.
like HR type of language that
Hmm.
you see on, like, you'll see like a mountain climber,
Hmm.
you know how they have the posters on the walls and like
Hmm.
offices and schools and things,
Hmm.
and it'll be a large picture of like a mountain climber, and then underneath it there will be some meaningless non-offensive quote, like
Right.
saying, if you believe in yourself you can climb to the top of the mountain, or something like,
Right.
just something that's supposed to be feel good, but
Yeah.
it's really saying nothing. It's just
It's
like,
it's shit, it's shit that a lot of us probably would have heard when we were in middle school back in the
yeah,
day,
like
right? Like,
wherever you go, that's where you will be. Yeah,
right,
like I mean, it's just like these totally, they're just meaningless statements. And the whole reason that people put those statements up on posters is people are all afraid of getting sued. So nobody
right,
wants to like, nobody wants to quote any actual real person, and
yeah,
nobody wants to put anything up that's actually saying something, because if it offends somebody, then it might become an HR complaint, or
yeah,
it could possibly result in a lawsuit. So you want to put up just nonsensical things that are words that are just saying nothing with some
right.
very non-offensive picture.
Well, and then you assume that they're aspirational and they're of good nature, which I
Yeah,
mean, of course they are, but uh, they don't have any real value or meaning. You know what I mean? And I
yeah,
think that's one of the reasons why they do that, because they know that it doesn't have any real substance and people can't really understand what's being said, but it just sounds good. You know what I mean? And of course, she's the vice president of the United States. So why wouldn't she say something that is very intelligent and smart? You know what I mean? And
yeah.
if you say anything against that, Shane, if you say anything against that, you know what they're going to say.
Hmm.
Oh, you don't believe in a black woman or an Indian woman or a woman in general being able to lead this country,
Yeah.
right? Now, here's my counter to that. I'm going to say this. I'm going to get on this. So, how do you think if people here's the interesting thing. The only reason why I would say it would be interesting to have Kamala Harris as the president of the United States is because she's going to go up against some very conservative people within Europe, and in particular, Giorgia Meloni,
Hmm.
somebody that I actually really admire,
Me too.
and I think she's actually pretty. Just side note.
Yes.
Anyways, uh, so given that, we know Maloney has been sort of very very critical of immigration, right? Of the mass migration that's been taking place over the years to Europe, which is a major issue in Europe right now. It's also a major issue here in the United States, right? And Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, was supposed to, I believe, wasn't she kind of over that? Wasn't she the one leading that whole thing about immigration and everything, right?
She
Not a
she
lot
she
of
was the
prisoners.
border czar.
Right,
Is specifically what she was called.
right,
Now they're trying to deny it, but CNN were calling her the border czar whenever Joe Biden called her the border czar.
right, right.
Like
Now,
three or four, like 3 years ago.
was that meant to be a good thing? Was that meant to be
Yes.
negative, or
Yeah.
was it okay?
Yeah. Because normally a new president will put the vice president on in charge of some kind of a project.
Hmm.
You know,
But I
um,
mean, uh, what is her being called the border czar? Is that meant to be a good thing?
well, 3 years ago, it was meant to be a good thing. Like when Joe Biden came in, Joe Biden said, "I trust Kamala so much. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put her in charge of the border
Hmm.
to make sure that the border is secure, and I'm also going to make her my liaison with the Central American countries,
Mm,
so that she can start to shore up and make sure that that uh that refugees and things are being kept are being settled and are being provided with refuge in the closest safe country, which in most cases would be Mexico.
mhm,
Like if you
mhm,
have a bunch of people that are coming up from Venezuela, or that are coming up from, let's say, El Salvador or Nicaragua or somewhere like that,
mhm,
what international law says is that the next uh that the next consecutive safe country to their country of origin needs to provide them with asylum.
mm, mhm,
So the thing is, what Joe Biden's whole thing was to try to put Kamala in charge of facilitating and making sure that these people that were seeking asylum would be
mhm.
provided with asylum in the closest internationally recognized safe country, which in
Mhm.
this case would be Mexico. But
Really?
Kamala didn't even go down there.
Yeah.
And if you remember, about a year ago, Kamala was interviewed. I think she was being interviewed by Lester Holt on NBC,
Hmm.
and Lester Holt asked her about the border and said and granted, this is NBC News. Like, these are people that spoon feed softballs to people like Kamala,
Yeah.
to Democrats. And
Hmm.
uh and Lester Holt said to her, well, in all fairness, you were put in charge of the border and you haven't even been down there once.
Hmm.
And Kamala sat back and kind of cackled and
Hmm.
said I haven't been to Europe either.
Right.
And
But but okay, okay. So yeah, you haven't been to Europe,
I mean, it's remarkable, and that actually was her last interview that she did.
really.
Yeah,
So she hasn't
like
done one since then.
yeah, that was her last unscripted one-on-one interview that she did with a reporter.
Yeah. Yeah. And here and now here's my thing, right? Okay. You know, in all fairness, I do think that it would be probably much more prudent and advantageous for presidents to maybe take a step back from being so vocal and talking so much on television. Okay.
Hmm.
The reason why I say that is because our past presidents didn't used to do that as much, but then they were also not as involved in state affairs, you know, uh, local affairs. Government wasn't as entrenched in the family, in the American family as it is now, right?
Yeah.
And this is something that we know. I mean, even the Holy Father, in the past would not give a lot of homilies and stuff. He wouldn't talk a lot. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
There'd be some kind of encyclical or some kind of homily, something given, on a special occasion or something like that. They would speak, but other than that, you weren't really, hearing from the Pope all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think that that's something that political officials and um, any type of leadership should maybe adopt, um, and just you know they can prove things by their actions and things that they're getting passed and done. You know, um, but what I the what I want to say is alluding to Maloney. The reason why I'm saying that is because I think what it shows is no, people don't believe that women can't be in power and in leadership. People believe that women can be in power and in leadership. It's just, you know, they they want to know what it is what policies you're going to enact and how and what are you going to do to basically um, restore the country back to a place where people feel safe, where people feel like they can actually live,
Yeah.
where they can take care of their families, right? And of course, we know that the this whole thing of population decline is a really big concern, right? We're you know two major places is Italy, which has a really big has a really um, low population growth, and Japan,
Yeah.
right? And Maloney has been doing a lot to try and curb that, right? She's been giving, if I recall, she's been advocating for like government assistance to give to families or women who are pregnant.
Yeah,
Um,
like tax credits, and then those are called pronatalist
okay,
policies, right?
okay,
And yeah, so a pronatalist policy basically means that it's encouraging people in the country to have babies. Yeah,
right,
well, encouraging women in the country to have babies, right?
right,
So
right.
um so very conventional, very typical pronatalist policies are things like tax credits per child.
Hmm.
And then even when a woman has when a woman has had a certain number of kids,
Hmm.
then she is no longer um eligible to be, or her her income is no longer eligible to be taxed.
Oh
That's
wow.
another thing that has been thrown around too.
So
It
would
is
that
like
be like?
once a woman has four kids,
Uh-huh,
for the rest of her life, whenever she does want to work,
uh-huh.
she'll keep 100% of her income.
Oh wow. Okay. Now
You know,
is this a policy that's been enacted anywhere so far? Or
I
is that
think
just like a?
I think Romania and Eastern Europe, like Hungary and places like that, they have um put in place more pronatalist policies than
Mhm,
any other place I'm aware of.
mhm.
There could be other places that have put them in place.
Yeah. And the thing, I guess what I want to say to that is that, you know, if you compare a policy like that, you know, and thinking about Maloney and Italy and her administration and everything, and then you think about like Kamala Harris and her administration, you know, they're doing the sort of the exact opposite of it. You know, you know, that's what I would foresee. Like Kamala Harris is going to do whatever you see Maloney doing. That is on one hand, you're gonna find that this country is gonna do the exact opposite under her administration.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're gonna continue to see a low birth rate, right? You're gonna see a continuing of the mass migration. Um, you know, you're going to have a president who's very condescending because
Mhm.
she feels like she's in power and she can say what, you know, Big Mama can say whatever she wants to say. You know what I mean? I don't mean to call her Big Mama, but you know, that's the kind of attitude. That's the kind of attitude, you know, you get from her. That's the kind of attitude I got when I used to listen to Michelle Obama.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, I thought that they were great. You know, I thought Barack Obama and Michelle Obama were really cool. You know what I mean? And I think we all did when we were just getting into college and stuff like that. You know what I mean? We thought he was gonna be the change that he spoke about and everything, right? And but I think with this election, man, I think people they're either looking at it like I'll take the lesser of the two evils, um, and at least you know, I'd at least rather have a president who's gonna stand on what they say they're gonna do and you know and really care about like the economy. And it's not here's another thing, who is not who doesn't come from a legal background. I think this is a
Mhm.
really serious thing because right, like most of our presidents and most of the political elite, they're all from a legal background, right?
Mhm.
And you know, Trump had alluded to this when he was talking to Theo Vaughn about how the legal lobbies are the biggest ones in the you know in in DC, right?
Yeah.
They have the most weight. So what is that? I mean, that should tell you a lot right there. That maybe our country is really just run by a whole bunch of people are that know how to use the law to their you know to their advantage and you know coerce people into doing things that maybe they wouldn't have actually done in order to win an election, you know, or win certain offices or positions. So, you know, um, I think given that Trump doesn't come from that kind of background, you know, it does say, I think it speaks a lot of volume. You know, there's a lot of volume with that. You know what I mean? Because,
Well, and you know, I think that's a really good point. And I think it actually kind of broadens out, or I think it kind of unfurl. I think that point kind of unfurls
mhm,
to the fact that there are really we really have two governments operating in the United States.
mhm,
And just like how they really kind of have two governments operating in Europe.
mhm,
One is the elected government,
mhm,
and then the other is the administrative government, the administrative state where no one's elected.
mhm,
And and we happen to be living in a time where the real power resides in the hands of the administrative state.
Mm-hmm.
The real power resides in the hands of the bureaucrats that are not elected.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we end up facing with one of the things I like about people like Donald Trump, who I don't agree with on everything, but one of
Mm-hmm.
the things I like about people like Donald Trump and Giorgia Maloney
Mm-hmm.
are that these are people that you can tell really want to get into power and they want to govern.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they want to implement they want to implement the mandate that they were handed by the people, right?
Right. Right.
Now you notice though what ends up happening is along the way of them working to get elected and then while they're in elected office, what ends up happening, they end up getting thrown all these roadblocks.
Mm-hmm.
They end up getting thrown all kinds of, the kitchen sink gets thrown at them
Mm-hmm.
by the unelected, by the unelected bureaucrats, the unelected administrative state that
Mm-hmm.
are trying to protect, they're trying to protect their power because the thing is for them, their position in the world is like the goose that laid the golden egg, and they don't want
Mm-hmm.
anyone to kill it. You know,
Right.
and what they fear is that a populist will get elected who has a mandate from the people,
Mm-hmm.
and that the mandate from the people is you either give the golden eggs to everybody or we're going to
Mm-hmm.
kill the goose. And the people that possess that goose, they don't want to share it with anybody and they don't want it to get killed.
Right.
So they're willing to accuse, like, remember, I mean, I don't think we can allow anybody to forget this. They
Mm-hmm.
accused Donald Trump of being a Russian secret agent,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know, and they
Mm-hmm.
and they accused him, and it wasn't just accusing him on like some online blog. They were
Right.
accusing him from the pedestal of Time Magazine, the New
Mm-hmm.
York Times,
Mm-hmm.
CNN, the Washington Post, the
Mm-hmm.
Huffington Post, all these different places. They were accusing him over and over and over again of being a Russian secret agent who got peed on by a Russian prostitute, and that Putin had all this blackmail and everything on him,
Mm-hmm.
which was all bunk. It
Yeah.
was all fake, and none of them want to talk about it now. They're not
Mm-hmm.
even willing to apologize for it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you know, people should ask themselves, what is the wealthiest county in the United States?
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, just the other day, I was with some friends and I asked them, I was like, so what would you say it is the wealthiest country in the United States? And some people said Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Some people said, well, maybe like the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they call that Billionaires Row.
Okay.
Maybe like Beverly Hills or some neighborhood in
Yeah.
Hollywood, or maybe some little neighborhood in San Francisco where all the rich people live, like Pacific Heights,
Yeah.
where Nancy Pelosi lives. Well, it's very interesting. If you go and Google it, what is the wealthiest county in America? It's Loudoun County,
Okay.
and Loudoun County is spelled Loudin, and Loudoun County is in Northern Virginia, and
Okay.
it's a bedroom community of Washington D.C.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can ask yourself, who lives in Loudoun County? Well, the
Mm-hmm.
people live in Loudoun County are all the administrators
Mm-hmm.
that run the government, the people from the CIA, from the NSA, from all
Mm-hmm.
the alphabet agencies that continue to do their jobs and
Mm-hmm.
that continue to wield power in spite of whoever the public elect.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also where all the lobbyists live, and that's also where
Go
all the
figure.
salesmen for the military contracting companies live.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so the thing is, if you really want to get to the core of who the exploiters are in the country,
Mm-hmm.
it's not the oil barons. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's not the Silicon Valley bros.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. It's not even Wall Street. In spite of Wall Street, um, you know, in many ways, Wall Street's suckling at the same teeth that Loudoun County is. Um,
Right.
but the thing is, it's the political class,
Mm-hmm.
and it's people who it's not the political people that run for office,
Right.
and it's not even people connected to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the people that are in the political strata that aren't elected. It's people that you
Right.
don't know their names,
Right.
and they go and they make six figures. They've got
Right.
cushy jobs,
Yeah.
and in order for them to live their comfy lives, your life has to be hard.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm just wondering.
You can't afford to buy your baby food,
Hmm.
so that those people can afford to expand their kitchen, and
Hmm.
so that they can afford to buy their third boat and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And what they're doing is they're they're the ones that are brokering the deals, selling all this new military equipment to replace the old equipment that's been sent to Ukraine. you
Right.
know these are these are the people that are selling servers to
Hmm.
the NSA to house all the text messages and the emails and everything that they're siphoning off of your phone. Yeah, and this is another thing. It's not a coincidence that when Jeff Bezos was looking to the East Coast to
Hmm.
find where to place his East Coast headquarters,
Hmm.
guess where he picked to put it?
What,
Loudoun
Loudon
County,
County?
Virginia. He didn't pick New York City.
That's an
He didn't pick
interesting. I never
Atlanta.
thought about
He
that.
didn't pick
Yeah.
Miami. He picked
Yeah.
Loudoun County, Virginia, because Amazon Web Services. I'm pretty sure their biggest customer is the Pentagon.
Hmm.
You know,
And
they
what would the Pentagon be buying from Amazon?
server space.
Okay, server space. And
Yeah.
what would that what would that mean for them? Like,
So basically, just simply put, um, so simply put, server space is where you store data.
okay.
Now,
Hmm.
that data could be in the form of a website, or
Hmm.
that data could be in the form of your text messages,
Okay.
or videos, or pictures that are on your phone that end up getting
It's
downloaded
just,
to those
yeah,
servers.
they have
And
the
and
ability to
the and
store
the
your
federal government
information.
rents that from Amazon, and that's one of the ways that Amazon makes a lot of money.
Right. Is that why they're able to advertise to you too? Like when you go on certain websites and it's like you see this thing that you looked at like a couple of days ago and it's like, oh well, you were looking and I'd be thinking to myself, damn, how did you know I was looking at that?
Well, that's part of it. There's a saying in Silicon Valley that what
And
is
it's
it? When
and it's books, by the way, Shane.
Yeah. Well, when you get a service, yeah, when you get a service for free, that
Mhm.
means that you are the product.
Okay. Hmm.
And that's I'm paraphrasing here, but that's a very common saying in Silicon Valley, that the reason that Google, for instance, offers you Gmail for free
Hmm.
is so that they can have an anonymous program use an algorithm to read through your emails,
Hmm.
and figure out what the best items are to advertise to you.
Mm.
You
Wow.
know, and
Wow.
and and the thing is, that's part of the deal. That's the reason they don't charge you anything for Gmail, is because you are the product that's being sold,
Right.
right? And same thing with Facebook.
Yeah.
You are the product that's being sold.
Well, speaking of Facebook, why don't we turn to that? Right. Speaking of
Okay.
Facebook, we just heard this week that Zuckerberg admitted to the fact that Facebook was coerced, I guess is the word,
Mhm.
into censoring COVID-19 information on Facebook.
I,
Right.
for one, was shocked, Shannon.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean,
I
because they kept that
totally
game.
shocked.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but they did keep that going for a while, to make it seem like no, there's absolutely no censorship. Facebook is,
Yeah.
here for everyone. We do not uh censor or discriminate against opinions about, you know,
Well, and if I had a dollar for every time in the last 5 years that um that I've been called a Russian propagandist, or that
mhm,
I've been called a conspiracy theorist,
mhm,
specifically because I was saying that Google and Facebook and Instagram and
yeah,
Twitter, prior to Elon Musk,
Yeah.
that those social media companies were censoring ideas that they didn't like.
Hmm.
You know, if I had $1 for each time that I was called a Russian propagandist or conspiracy theorist for that, I'd probably be a millionaire. You know, that would be incredible.
Well, don't worry. I have my hands on your heel. You know, right?
Yeah.
Say
You
he's
know,
going up.
so
I'm going up too.
yeah, you know, so my question is, that back then people like you and I were called Russian propagandists and conspiracy, and this was before the war in Ukraine. You know,
Hmm.
they were calling people like us Russian propagandists.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but you know, the thing is, I guess my question is, would that criticism still stick now? The fact that we were right, you
Well,
know,
yeah,
or
yeah. I don't even think they would mention that. I don't think they would
oh
say
wait,
that.
actually, we would still be Russian propagandists because we don't support our uh we don't support continuing the proxy war in Ukraine. So I
Oh,
guess that makes us de facto Russian propagandists.
okay. Well, you know, hey, look, I tell you, Shane, one thing, I, I always say this, and I really don't even care, you know, because my thing is, look, you know, um, for all our, you know, somewhat disdain for Russia and everything,
Mhm.
I really think was behind that is this is envy. And we talked about this before when
Yeah.
we were talking with Nico. You know, I do think that's what it is because weren't you the one that told me that Russia has the largest amount of natural resources in the world?
Yeah, they're the only country on the planet that's totally self-sufficient, where
Right.
they don't need to import anything from anybody.
Right.
Like as far as raw materials go. Now, as far as technology and and like processing plants and processing facilities and factories and finished goods, it's a totally
Mhm.
different story.
Mhm. They have to get that. They have to what get that uh, built and shipped in from somewhere else or something like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
you
either
know,
way, I mean, it doesn't really matter. You know.
yeah. So you know, I guess the way to think about it is that you can really only do a handful of things at a given time, or you can really only be good at a handful of things.
Hmm.
And that rule applies to people, and it also applies to large scale economies, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So so Russia, so the Russians have always concentrated on extracting raw resources out of the ground, things like coal, petroleum, diamonds, gold,
Diamonds. Yeah.
you know, nickel, you know those kind of things. So in many ways, if you want to talk to some of the premier like mining engineers on the planet,
Hmm.
or if you want to go talk to some of the premier chemical engineers on the planet, you're going to end up in Russia, you know, at some
Really.
point because the Russians are prolific whenever it comes to those kind of things.
Right.
Now, when you're talking
Something,
about industry,
something. Yeah, that's something that maybe if we wouldn't be so hostile to the Russians, we could learn
yeah,
from them. But I
but
digress. Good.
so you know, then on the other hand, you look at a country that is kind of the diametric opposite,
Hmm.
like Germany. You
Hmm.
know, so Germany is a country that is pretty much scant whenever it comes to natural resources,
Hmm.
but they are very industrious.
Right.
You know, so the thing is, instead of them focusing their energy on extracting resources out of the ground, they don't have any
Hmm.
resources to extract out of the ground.
Hmm.
They focus their energies on processing things
Hmm.
into finished goods, like you know, turning petroleum into plastic. Yeah, you
Right.
know, and like manufacturing glass and all kinds of finished products. That's what the Germans have focused their time on doing because they don't have the resources to focus their energy on getting it out of the ground.
Yeah.
You know,
And I mean,
and
but then, you know, Germany has always been sort of known for being very, very industrious or very, very interested in making stuff, putting stuff together, tinkering
yeah,
with stuff, you know, creating creating weapons that are, you know, you know, an upgrade to what they had previously. Like you think about the First World War, right? You
Mhm.
know, like wasn't it like the British and the French that were riding in on horses to trenches and getting mowed down by
And the
tanks?
Germans had the tanks.
Yeah, you know, so they've always sort of been that way. But yeah, I get your point.
Well, and you know the thing is when you talk about the German or about the British and the French,
Mhm.
one thing the British and the French they don't agree on a whole lot of things,
Right.
but one thing that they both fundamentally historically have always agreed on is to try to keep a wedge between the Germans and the Russians.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is that you have Russia that has all this that has all these raw resources. They are a catalog of
Yeah.
raw resources.
Yeah.
And not just like industrial goods or
Yeah.
I'm not just industrial resources like oil and gold and copper and stuff like that, but they also have vast land that's very good for growing food,
Right.
wheat, and they can also raise a lot of cows and back in the day they could raise a lot of horses and export those and everything.
Right.
So the thing that the British and the French always wanted to make sure that they would that they did was they wanted to make sure that the Germans and the Russians never linked up.
Okay.
Because if the Germans and the Russians ever linked up, that would mean one, the Germans wouldn't have to focus on enemies on both sides,
Right.
the East and the West. That would allow the Germans to just focus on the West, you know,
Right. Right.
and what that would do is it would ultimately give the Russians an upper hand because Germany being an industrial juggernaut, which it really has been since the mid to late 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
uh that would end up giving the Russians an upper hand, specifically because it's so cheap to get raw resources from Russia to Germany,
Mm-hmm.
you know even before pipelines and things.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of the land and just because of the waterway that goes from like St. Petersburg to Hamburg, that's a very very short sea distance to travel.
Mm-hmm.
And the British are, the French and British, they don't have any real way of blockading the transport of goods between St. Petersburg and Hamburg. Now,
Right.
clearly the British could send warships
Mm-hmm.
into that part of the world to do a blockade, which they've done before.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still very treacherous because a lot of that sea, I think it's the Sea of Finland and the North Sea and all that.
Mm-hmm.
That's highly contested area.
Okay.
Especially when you're talking about the 1800s, that very 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 highly contested area. And the Brits were also focused on building their empire around the world. They didn't want to have to focus on worrying about a European behemoth,
Yeah.
some kind of some kind of an alliance between the Germans and the Russians. And that's one thing when you go and read like Churchill and things. A lot of people come away from Churchill and they say, "Wow, Churchill really hated the Russians and really hated the Germans."
Yeah.
No, that's just a natural British thing where where the Brits have always been trying to stir up problems between
Yeah.
the Germans and the Russians,
Right.
always.
Right. So you think so in terms of today's political climate, right? Why would it be in the United States' interest to try and thwart a relationship between, say, a country like Germany and Russia? Why would there be a need to offset that? Is that because they
Well,
just because they see the same potential power and threat that Great Britain would have seen during their illustrious
well,
their illustrious empire?
what I would say is that Great Britain's not really. I wouldn't even call Great Britain a functional state anymore, man. Like that
Right. Yeah. I don't.
that
Yeah. I
place is going
don't.
to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah.
And
I'm
and
so
as far
sorry
as
for them.
well, truthfully, there are a lot of other people I feel sorry for before I'll ever feel bad for the Brits.
I, I at least I at least feel bad for Queen Elizabeth, but she's gone now, so she
well,
don't care.
she oversaw the undoing of the British Empire, and now
Yeah.
now now one thing I'll say is I may feel a little bit more sympathy toward the Brits if they were
Mhm.
to fully withdraw out of Northern Ireland. If
Oh,
if,
okay.
if
Yeah.
they were to do that, then I would probably then I could possibly become a little bit more sympathetic to them. But until that happens, they're I don't really have any sympathy for them.
Right. He said,
Um,
I don't give a
but
shit.
but the thing is, we kind of took up the mantle. So when the British Empire fell apart, which really began after World War II,
Mhm.
which a lot of people say that the official end of the British Empire was the Suez Crisis in the 50s. And if
Okay.
people aren't familiar with that, just Google it, Suez Crisis. You'll see immediately what it was.
Mhm. Mhm.
And from that moment on, the United States was recognized as being the new torch carrier. We had ripped the torch out of the hands of the Brits
Okay.
because the Brits they had mismanaged themselves so poorly
Yeah.
during World War I and World War II, and they were so savagely trying to uphold that policy of keeping the Germans and the Russians apart
Hmm.
that they essentially kind of sacrificed their position in the world in order to do that.
Right. Right.
And
And
the United States
mhm.
ended up take carrying on the torch,
Mhm.
and we happen to live in a country that's very materially blessed
Mhm.
and that's very resource rich, something that the UK is not.
Mhm.
So we have a little bit more wiggle room to play around with as far as going and meddling in between Germany and Russia.
Right. And probably with the, I assume probably with the rest of the world too, right? We can always threaten to just rely on ourselves, which
Yeah.
we seem to kind of really never do, right? We always talk about tapping oil offshore or on safer
And
lands.
truthfully, man, and truthfully, for the record, I'm not saying that I'm opposed to interfering over in that part of the world.
Mhm.
But my to me, the thing that makes the most sense for the United States is to continue occupying Germany.
Mhm.
For us to maintain our bases there,
Mhm.
specifically to prevent German nationalism from ever rising up again. Because
Do you
if we know,
do you really think that's a real problem, Shane? I kind of think Germany, just like Japan, they're just bygone powers that, you know, maybe by suppressing them more, that just makes them more angry, more frustrated, more of a feeling like they don't have
well, I
autonomy or
think
something.
so. I think the fundamental problem with Germany in particular is one, they're the most powerful economy in the European Union, which gives them kind of tyrannical power over the EU countries. Basically, whatever a self-actualized and sovereign Germany would want to do, that's the direction the European Union would have to go.
Okay.
And by us having a boot on Germany's back,
Hmm.
what that does, it subdues Germany a little bit, you know,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
and 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 gives other countries in Europe a little bit more of a fair shake. Now, the problem is you've got the French on the other hand that are a close number two to the Germans,
Hmm.
and they kind of run the roost. Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so I mean, at the end of the day, I think the whole EU project, I think the whole thing will end up being a failure.
Me too.
Um,
Yep.
but one
Which I
problem with
said that a long time ago, Shane. I really believe when I saw the troubles going on in Great Britain before the Brexit, I had
yeah
made a statement that I said, I believe that um the European Union is probably not going to, I don't think it's going to last. Because
yeah
there's so
well
many
well
different interests, and there's
and
concerns.
so this is something to think about though as far as Germany goes.
Hmm.
Is you have a country that's very industrious, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
A first world country, and a very productive country.
Hmm.
But they're very scant when it comes to natural resources, right?
Hmm.
Now, Germany essentially has one port, Hamburg, and
Okay.
that's it. Like that's the one major port for the entire country.
Okay. Hmm.
And the thing is, in order for the Germans to be able to access the seas, it's a pretty tight fit.
Hmm.
They have to get around like basically, in order for them to have access to the ocean,
Hmm.
they have to have the permission of the British and of the French.
Okay.
You
Hmm.
know, so
Hmm.
and so the thing is, the natural relationship that makes sense for Germany is for them to have an amicable relationship with the Russians, right?
Right. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense.
Hmm.
Now, so ultimately, the problem is you're continuously going to have the interference of Western Europe, in particular. By Western Europe, I mean the French and the British.
Hmm.
You're always going to have their interference to block Germany from having access to the wider world.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
that's always going to happen.
Yeah.
And there's actually a really good argument to be made that one of the reasons that World War One broke out was to destroy the British the newly built German naval fleet
Right. Okay.
that
Hmm.
that had just been built in Hamburg, and
Hmm.
that terrified the British
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
the British saw that as a direct threat because with Germany becoming a naval power, that would have given Germany the ability to basically to tell the Brits to go and pound sand, and that the
Right.
Germans would be able to go and trade with whoever they wanted, whether it was the Russians or it was the Americans or whoever.
Right. Right.
So I guess my whole point in saying all this is um that America is the successor sea power to the Brits,
Right.
and we see it as being a part of of our national interests to
Yeah.
prevent the Germans and the Russians from ever linking up.
Hmm.
That's one of the reasons that or I believe that's one of the reasons that we blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. We we
That's a okay.
we never liked the Nord Stream pipeline.
Hmm.
And I think that's one of the reasons that we fomented all of this. I guess we can just call them troubles in the Ukraine.
Hmm.
Um, I think we originally fomented these troubles to try to add Ukraine to the European Union,
Hmm.
and to expand NATO's footprint.
Hmm.
Right, literally, right, jetting right into Russia.
Hmm.
Um, but then I think things started to make an interesting turn as this proxy war ramped up. I personally don't think that a lot of people in what I guess what you could call the American deep state. I
Hmm.
don't think they realized that this thing would eventually develop into an opportunity to blow up the Nord Stream pipeline with impunity.
Hmm. Hmm.
You know,
Hmm. Yeah.
and ultimately now what you end up seeing is you're seeing blockades of railways and stuff that
Hmm.
lead from Russia to essentially to the heart of Europe to Germany, and you've got Poland that's right next to Germany,
Hmm.
and the Poles are going to do whatever they can to prevent the Russians from collaborating with the Germans, and to prevent the Germans from collaborating with the Russians, because we all know how that ended for the Poles in the 1930s, where the Germans invaded and took the western part of Poland, and the Russians invaded and swallowed up the eastern part of Poland.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
you
didn't
know,
know
and
that. Yeah. 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 So then with that, then what do you think Kamala Harris is sort of do you think she's going to continue the same war path or war strategy that we've seen in the past? How many years has it been since the Ukraine war started? What, three?
started in did that start in 2022? I think is when that started.
2022. Okay. So
Yeah,
do you think she's going to continue those policies, or do you think she's going to?
100%.
Okay. Because
But
I'm just thinking like, you think about Trump and how he talks about, hey, I'm going to end this war immediate. This war will be over in 24 hours. That's what
yeah,
that's his
we see there again. I think Kamala Harris is someone who's running. She's thrown her hat in she's thrown her hat in the ring. She's replaced Joe Biden on the ticket and everything.
Mhm.
Um, I think she is someone that will get elected, but she won't really be governing.
Right. Okay.
She'll be the figurehead,
Mhm.
but the people that'll actually be running the show will be people that are in the alphabet agencies and people in the intelligence community. They're going to continue to be allowed to go run around the world and kill this guy, go drone kill that person, start
Mhm.
war between these two countries, and embolden this proxy war and
Mhm.
put an end to that proxy war over there. They're playing this game, this international game of chess.
Mhm.
Um, and the problem is with someone like Donald Trump, when Donald Trump gets elected, he actually wants to govern.
Mhm. Mhm.
And Donald Trump's got a bit of he's got a bit of an ego,
Yeah.
and Donald Trump is not going to sit by and just allow people that are in the intelligence community to continue to run the government.
Mhm.
you know and the
Mhm.
thing is, Kamala Harris will continue, I think, to run things in the same way that Joe Biden has, which is just not really doing anything at all, just not getting in the way of unelected people from doing whatever they want with the government.
Right. Right. Okay. Okay. Well, I want to land the plane with this because I think this is an interesting question. Uh, so I'll ask this. You know, if Trump wins, given that he might win, um, do you think that he will? Let me see the right word to use. Do you think he will forgive or
Hmm.
show compassion or charity towards his his I guess his enemies or his designated enemies? Do you think that the people around him will, because we're talking about lobbying, we're talking about the people around the administration, around the president, right? How much influence they have as far as his decision making, his or her decision making. Do you think that he will? Do you think that he will forgive or let go of the sort of ills that came his way over these past 4 years? And then secondly, is that even the right thing to do? You know what I mean? We look at it from, I mean, if you look at it maybe from a Christian perspective, I guess, one might say, yeah, he should. But then again, if you look at it maybe from a political or uh, government perspective, or even some might say legal perspective, say no, he shouldn't, because you know they need to be made into examples of what to not ever do again to people when they have some kind of you know um, some kind of disdain for someone, right? You should
Well,
not use the law and the government as a means to go attack your enemies.
right.
So everybody kind of, I think everybody kind of implicitly believes that to be true, right? It's just that like that's not what happened in this over these
Well,
past couple of years. So
okay, so I know I'm kind of I know I'm digging deep here. I'm putting my hand deep into the bucket, but
okay,
in so in did you ever read Plato's Republic?
I read it, but it was a long time ago. That was a
So
long time
so
ago.
for me too. Now, remember that when Plato's talking about the Republic, he talks about how the golden age is
Mm-hmm.
when the rulers and the ruled all believe the same myth,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
where all of them actually believe the same myth,
Mm-hmm.
you know
Mm-hmm.
and whether that's a founding myth, grounded in some original act of violence, like most myths are, that comes along with some kind of an ethical or moral code.
Mm-hmm.
um the idea is that the golden age is when the rulers and the ruled all authentically believe that myth.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think the reason that I think it's fair to say we're not living in a golden age.
Mm-hmm.
um and I would argue the reason for that is that you have the rulers, you have the ruling class. and
Mm-hmm.
and when I say ruling class, I'm not necessarily talking about elected officials. I'm talking mainly about unelected people.
Mm-hmm.
They don't believe in the same myth that the rest of us believe in or are expected to believe in.
Mm-hmm.
We are expected to believe in this Americana idea that America is the land of the free and that we should be willing to sacrifice anything
Mm-hmm.
for the land of the free.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would argue is that a lot of people, I don't know if it would be a majority or not, but a lot of people in that administrative class that are up in the ruling class, they don't believe in that myth.
Mm-hmm.
They're self-interested people.
Okay.
And the way that I kind of the way I'm going to bridge this,
Mm-hmm.
but between should Donald Trump forgive them or not, is if Donald Trump forgives them, and if forgiveness means allowing them to continue doing what they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
um, then America's spiral to the bottom will continue.
Mm-hmm.
There's a federal it's like a part of a federal statute. It's called or it's a type of executive order or something. It's called Schedule F.
Okay.
And Schedule F basically means it's basically something that says that the president the president as the chief executive can fire anybody
Mm-hmm.
that is under the jurisdiction of the executive branch.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so what what the talk is that when Donald Trump gets elected, he's going to initiate Schedule F and fire a buttload of people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, because remember the thing is when he got elected in 2016, he got elected and said he was going to put an end to the wars and he was going to do this and that and the other and he was going to he wanted to thaw out the situation with the North Koreans and things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what the intelligence community wanted him to do.
Mm-hmm.
Now those things were in the best interest of the United States of America. Those things were in the best interest of the people who buy into the American myth, right?
Mm-hmm.
That those are the things that makes our country safer, that makes our country richer, that makes our country better, to
Mm-hmm.
not be at war with other people, to not have adversity with other people,
Mm-hmm.
to figure out a way to live and let live, as George Washington said, to have peace and commerce with all nations, but entangling alliances with none, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not what they wanted.
Yeah.
So what they immediately did was they used their positions of power to initiate a war with the elected president.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget in I think it was in December of 2016 or in January of 2017,
Mm-hmm.
um Chuck Schumer was being interviewed on Meet the Press, and Chuck Schumer said I wouldn't be messing around with the intelligence community like Donald Trump is because
Mm-hmm.
they have 6 ways to Sunday to get back at you. And you know what? That's the honest to goodness truth.
Right.
So Donald Trump could forgive them, but Donald
Yeah.
Trump needs to fire them.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Okay.
and
Okay.
now ultimately the question is you have to be careful with. I think the reason you have to be careful with firing them is you have a lot of them that are privy to sensitive information.
So what does that mean?
So we have to
Are you
figure out
trying to
what
say
to
that?
do with those people.
But what would are you saying that they would still have they would have like they would be able to like sort of I guess for lack of a better term sort of load the gun on Trump
Well,
and try to
no,
shame him?
no, not necessarily. Like something that they could do is, let's say, on their way out,
Mhm.
they could illegally obtain a bunch of files on their political enemies and use those illegally obtained files. Let's say that so let's say that a bunch of powerful senators
Mhm.
um who may not be compromised by this by that little syndicate of the administrative state people that Donald Trump would theoretically fire. Let's say
Mhm.
in their last 30 days they end up using they end up using their privileged position to download the internet search history
Mhm.
of a bunch of powerful senators.
Okay.
Then
Mhm.
theoretically what they could do is they could use that as blackmail to get
Mhm.
those to um to manipulate those senators, or they could sell that blackmail to a foreign government or to someone else, right?
Mm.
um
Okay.
or what they could do is leak the names of people that are undercover in foreign countries, like let's say undercover people that we might have in Russia or China or in Iran or in North Korea. They could
You
leak
mean
those
like
names
agents,
publicly. What?
like agents or
Yeah,
something?
yeah, like undercover agents or even like intelligence assets or something. they
Okay.
they could leak those names and
Hmm.
make the Trump administration look bad when it wasn't the
Mm.
Trump administration that leaked them.
So you're saying, in other words, they could make it seem like Trump's administration um, gave up their information and their ability to stay safe,
Right. Yes.
and
And the
and
thing
that
is,
they would characterize it as it being Trump's fault that
yeah,
he let this slip.
yeah, and the thing is, man, so somebody who's watching or listening to this might say, well, those people would never misuse their position of privilege because they love the country and they would never do anything that would harm the country. Well, um what I would direct your attention to is remember the letter that came out in 2020 that said that the Hunter Biden laptop news story what was Russian propaganda.
Hmm.
And everybody that signed that letter, they all had top secret security clearance or classified security. They all had security clearances that
Hmm.
allowed them to view classified information. And the implication in that was that they were somehow privy to things that you and I aren't able to be privy to because we don't have security clearances to be
Hmm.
able to look at classified information. That they knew things that we're not allowed to know. Therefore, they were aware that it was uh that it was Russian propaganda, that it was a planted news story by the Russians. Well, it turned out that either the intelligence that they all had was bad,
Hmm.
or they misuse their position because they're not operating buying into the same they're not buying into the same myth of patriotism that we do.
Hmm. Hmm.
We love our country,
Yeah.
and we love the freedom that our country provides us, right?
Yeah. Hmm. Hmm.
They love our country not because of the freedom it provides them and that it provides us. They love this country because it allows them to own multiple boats
Hmm.
and own a massive house in Loudoun County, Virginia,
Hmm.
that that they would never be able to obtain if it weren't for their position of power.
Yeah. Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know, the thing is, people that work at Walmart and run the register, and people that work at Dollar General and keep the shelves stocked, they're actually doing something that helps us.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know, you know, they're obviously motivated by self-interest. They're obviously motivated by the need to get a paycheck so that they can feed themselves and take care of their families and everything. But
Yeah.
those people are doing something that's truly in service to the common good. They're
Hmm.
putting the items on the shelf in the Dollar General so that we can go into the Dollar General and buy those things that we need, so we can find
Hmm.
those things. And then the people that are running the register at Walmart, they're running that register, they're helping us obtain the goods that we need, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the thing is, these people that are sitting in these privileged positions in the US intelligence community, and it's not all of them, but
Hmm.
it's a pretty good number of them. They're sitting in these privileged positions, and their only claim to fame is that they have knowledge that you don't,
Hmm.
and they're willing to sell out. Um, and, and they're willing to sell out because they like having more than one boat. They
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
like having two kitchens in their house. They love it. You know,
Yeah.
they and they love it more than any kind of sense of altruism or any kind of sense of empathy that, well, maybe if I didn't skim this out of the system, maybe
Hmm.
those resources would be available to somebody who's really having a hard time, you
Right.
know? But
Right.
that's not the way their minds work.
Right. And so essentially what you're saying is they don't have, I guess, they don't have a charitable bone in their body. So why should Trump have a charitable bone in his body? I guess. Is that
Right. And so this is the thing. Ultimately, I think the question is, who is Donald? who's giving Donald Trump the mandate to govern?
Mm-hmm. The people.
You know, the people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these are the people that so the people, the working class, the non-asset owning class,
Mm-hmm.
um these are the people that are getting screwed by the system, and they
Mm-hmm.
have been getting screwed by the system for a long, long time.
Yeah.
you know Loudoun County, Virginia, it's super wealthy up there, and well, I
Mm-hmm.
think there's like Prince George's County or something. I think that's in Maryland, or it might be in Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
These are some of the wealthiest counties in the entire country.
Mm-hmm.
You don't find rich counties in rural Florida. You're not going to find rich counties in rural Alabama, or in rural Louisiana, rural Tennessee, rural Nebraska. You're not going to find wealthy counties in there. You'd probably in an average rural county in Alabama, you'd probably be hard pressed to find five people that own boats.
Yeah. But you know
Let
what,
alone
Shane?
people that own
That's
multiple boats.
yeah, but you know what? I have to
And
say
Donald
this.
Trump's responsibility is not um to help ensure that the people in the government have job security.
Mm-hmm.
His responsibility are to the people that are giving him the mandate to govern,
Right.
right?
Right. But I guess the thing that I want to say is, don't you think Loudoun County is a sort of a reflection of of that throughout this country? You know, if all those people who live in Loudoun County are doing this, I'm sure they have ties to people that live in other parts of the country who they're working, who they have deals with and are working, who are they're in cahoots with, right? Like you might say, okay, yeah, there's
Probably Silicon
like,
Valley and Wall Street.
yeah, you know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. Like Silicon Valley, Wall Street, I don't know, the Hamptons. I don't know that, maybe
Mm-hmm.
that's a little cliche. I don't know. I'm just saying there's got to be some hands in the pocket in some other places in this country that they're hand in hand with.
Mm-hmm.
We might not know who they are and stuff like that, and that, and it's okay. I don't really want to know who they are.
Well. Here. Let me be clear about the people in Loudoun County, Virginia, and the rich people that live in that area who got rich not by adding by selling value to other people,
Mhm,
and by rendering goods and services to other people need and want.
mhm,
They're skimming off the system, and to be clear, the commodity they're selling is access to power. That's the
mhm,
commodity they're selling.
mhm. Oh,
They're
mm,
so yes, they might be selling access to power
yeah,
to people and to billionaires in Silicon Valley, or to billionaires on Wall Street,
yeah,
but they're not selling access to power to people that live in like Jackson, Mississippi, or in
right,
in Detroit.
right,
Places that don't even have clean drinking water.
right, right. You're saying that the people that are in power keep the power amongst themselves, and they're
Mm-hmm.
not trying to disclose the truth to the public
Right.
because they don't want to give up their power. They don't want to give
Yeah.
up their comfort or their
Well,
whatever.
and
Yeah.
look, the thing is, I'm guessing there probably aren't a whole lot of mobile home parks in Loudoun County, Virginia. So the thing is,
Yeah.
you know, even if you had some of those people that were at one time in touch with what regular life is for the normal American,
Hmm.
they're probably so out of touch that in their current world they probably can't even conceive of what real life is for your average American.
Hmm. Hmm.
Where you actually have people that are having to decide to eat cereal for dinner
Yes.
because they
Hmm.
can't afford anything else,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
And that's disgusting. You know how you've got all these rich people in Hollywood, and of course Loudoun County, Virginia, and you've got all these rich people on Wall Street and all this that
Hmm.
they are outraged,
Hmm.
that they're outraged at this war in Ukraine, that
Hmm.
and they're outraged at the existence of Russia, and they're outraged at China and Taiwan and that whole issue over there. But
Hmm.
keep in mind something: they're not outraged that there are Americans that can only afford to eat cereal for dinner.
Right.
They're
Which
not
is
outraged.
unhealthy. Which is unhealthy for you, anyways. And
Yes.
we thank God that RFK Jr. has
Yep.
raised that point and has
Amen.
yeah. We
and
were
and,
glad.
and they're and they're also not outraged that ex-convicts can't vote.
Hmm.
That's another thing.
Hmm. Hmm. Yes, yes, that is a very that is a very
That's
I think that's something.
reprehensible.
Yeah, I think that's something that people don't actually think about a lot.
Yeah,
Actually, when they think about elections, because they just assume that, well, of course you wouldn't, of course, why would I let a criminal vote? You know what I mean? He's gonna vote, for his interest. And I'm like, but we all do that. You know what I mean? We all vote for our interests. I
yeah,
mean, whether you've done a crime or not, if you vote, you're gonna vote for your interest. I think it's more. We could talk about a lot of crimes. We could talk about, you know, how bad crime is and whatnot. But I mean, don't you think it's just as bad as a crime to have an administration and leadership in office that is continuing wars overseas, allowing for thousands of people to come in, allow for the devastation that we see happening in our country
mm,
on a mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, just I mean, dude, everybody's tired.
yeah.
And I think that, yeah, I mean, we've got to address some of these issues that really aren't that we probably that a lot of people within administration find it hard to tackle because they don't really maybe they don't really know about it, right? Like, okay, so for instance, RFK Jr. had the vice president who, I don't know who, I don't remember her name, like Shanahan,
Yeah, Nicole Shanahan, I think.
Nicole Shanahan. Now, you know, people were really kind of like, man, why the hell would you pick her? She's this green person. She's all into, whatever. I don't know, something. But he made a really good point about why he chose her. And you know what he said? He said, I chose her.
I haven't heard this.
Yeah, he said, I chose her because she's one of the only people in who works in politics who has an understanding of artificial intelligence.
Oh.
Do you see?
Hmm.
Now, now you might say that's not a big issue right now. We don't need to be concerned about that. But then the question is now what happens when it does become a
Yeah,
major issue,
and we
right?
need to
Because
be
it
thinking
will.
about that kind of stuff now.
I mean, dude, I don't even use the AI thing on Google, right?
Mm,
But I'll type in a question and it'll pull up data from, I mean, from everywhere, bro, and it'll give you like a summary in
yeah,
paragraphs about what you're talking about. And the funny thing is, it's like you're like, how did this thing how was it able to actually pull that up, know exactly what I'm typing in when I ask the question? You know, I think I asked the question like, I don't remember what I asked, but you asked all these questions and the Google was able to just pull it up. You know what I mean? And so
yeah,
and so yeah, I mean, I don't what I think. Okay, this is what I think, and this is something that Peter Thiel alluded to, and I know we kind of whatever, but this is still political because these are, and I think
hmm,
these are really fundamental sort of questions that, like you said, we're going to have to tackle in the future, right?
yeah,
Um, Peter Thiel said, okay, it's not so much that AI is the threat; it's what the elite can do with it.
hmm,
And you've been talking about that for the last, what, 30 minutes. That's
yeah,
just, if you put those two together, you probably want to have people who are really concerned about the threat of AI, but more concerned about the fact of what are people who have nefarious plans are going to do with that. And that could be within the American political elite or outside of it. Oftentimes we think more so about ex- external
hmm,
forces or people outside doing something wrong, right? Like this whole thing that the tampering with the elections, or you know, uh, cyber attack, or something like that, right? But we hardly ever think about, well, what can these people who live in Loudoun County do with that? Do with AI,
yeah,
right? So I think that is something good to think about, and I think if for nothing else, I think Trump, what he's willing to do is he's willing to tackle issues that are really that seem to be um, real problems, and he listens to the to other politicians
Yeah.
who he may think, okay, you know what, I may not really understand a lot of that, and I may not really want to deal with that myself, but there's somebody who's willing to tackle that. RFK is willing to tackle the health issues. You got his vice president, his former, who would have been his vice president, who's willing to tackle the AI. You need people like that in your administration. You need people like Vivek Ramaswamy. You need people like Elon Musk. You know, you need people like JD Vance. I mean, I think these are all, I think if nothing else, this administration is going to be very, it's going to have a lot. Okay, wait, let me rewind that. If Trump wins, you
Mhm.
know what I'm saying? See, I can't say that. I have to say, if Trump wins, then I do think that given the fact that there's been, and there's been a lot of, there seems to be a lot of Democrats or former Democrats who are gravitating towards him, right? Tulsi Gabbard, RFK
Mhm.
Jr., right? And even some entertainers. Isn't that cool, right?
Yeah.
Some art, some very prominent people are like, you know what? We had enough. We had enough. You know what I mean? And I always, just to land the plane, I think for me, I always think to myself, what is it that we've gotten out of this administration that we can kind of take away from, like, sort of a takeaway from that? I say that the Joe Biden administration um, was an administration where you have to kind of, if nothing else, you have to look at it like a lesson learned,
Mhm.
right? Like, you know, there's not really much to say that could, he's a nice guy. I'm sure he's a nice guy. I'm sure he likes to, whatever. And I don't like to speak ill of him because of his issues, because of things that he's
Yeah.
dealing with on a mental level and physical level, and the fact that he isn't, he is up in age, so
Yeah.
that you know, but you know, it still doesn't account for the fact that, like, so many things have happened in just a short amount of time with him being the president, that you're like, and of course you want to say, look, man, it is your fault. You're the one. You know what I mean? We want to scapegoat you. Like, we want, we want to, you're the designated person, right?
Yeah.
But just from everything that I've heard you say so far, it's like, well, actually, it's not just him though. It's people around him. It's his entourage. You know what I'm saying? It's the administration. It's the people that are behind the scenes, the people that are living in these counties that nobody knows about. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, there's a part of you that does feel sympathetic towards him. Then there's another part that it's like, you should not have tried to keep that going. You should not have tried to keep that narrative and that that false
Now,
narrative going.
and now you see, as far as Joe Biden goes, I think the reason things have gone to hell so much, in particular, um, during the Biden administration, is that he's clearly dealing with dementia.
Mhm,
He's clearly dealing with something neurological. Yeah,
mhm,
he's clearly degenerating. Cognitively.
mhm, mhm,
Um, and I think what that has done is it's made it so that there is no resistance at all against, I guess you can call them the deep state, or whatever, your our pals in Loudoun County. So the thing is, because there's really not much resistance against these unelected people who have their own vision for the world,
Mm-hmm.
which is one where they spur war because it
Mm-hmm.
makes them money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where they're trying to ram all this weird green tech
Mm-hmm.
down all of our throats because it makes the money, right?
Mm-hmm.
They canceled that oil that pipeline, the Keystone XL pipeline, like
Okay.
at the very beginning, which I guess that was a lot of, I guess Joe Biden was the driving force behind
Mm-hmm.
that. What my point is that Joe Biden is just kind of asleep at the wheel. And what
Mm-hmm.
that's done is it's allowed them to kind of steer the car in whatever direction they've wanted, and it's gone to hell. And
Mm-hmm.
you can look back uh at people. I mean, you can look back at Barack Obama, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Love him, hate him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a huge fan of him, but I do think that when he was running for office, he legitimately did want to end the war in Iraq,
Mm-hmm.
and he did legitimately want to end the torture that was going on in Guantanamo Bay. You
Mm-hmm.
know, yeah, there were a lot of things he wanted to do,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like he was being pushed by his deep state
Yeah.
to arm Ukraine, for instance, and Barack
Mhm.
Obama was like, I'm not doing that because I don't want to start a war with the Russians. Yeah,
Right.
so the thing is, Barack Obama put forward a lot of resistance against a lot of these unelected people that that uh that are very, very powerful in the government, who a lot of these
Mhm.
people we don't even know their names.
Yeah.
um
Probably
and
don't want to know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you probably bad things probably happen to you if you end up knowing their names.
Right.
Donald Trump. Donald Trump was at war with them.
Mm-hmm.
And they wreaked havoc on him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think they like Kamala Harris because I think they know that she's gonna go with the flow.
Right. And she's gonna appear online or on
Mhm.
television like she's Big Mama.
Yeah,
I
and
just
she's
have
gonna
to.
be talking
I
about the
have.
electric school buses.
I have to. I have to put that in there again. I'm sorry. You know, I don't. I don't mean to call you Big Mama, uh, Vice President Harris, but you kind of act like it. If you watch, if she's watching this, if she,
She she might be.
I'm speaking. Yeah. All right, man. Well, this, hey, we're gonna pick it back up again.
Tomorrow,
Hopefully
right?
tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, it
We'll,
sounds good.
we'll we'll have something new to talk about. A little more refreshing and uh and probably a little bit more peaceful,
Yep,
right?
a little bit more uplifting.
A little bit more uplifting. Right, right. So all right, brother. Until tomorrow.
All right, peace.
All right, ciao.